እንኳን ደህና መጣ። We're glad to have you as our first experience sharing session interviewee እና experience share ስለምታደርግልን እናመሰግናለን. You can start by introducing yourself.
Okay. Sorry. Hi everyone. Kidus Dawit. I just finished my first year at Yale University here in the United States. Before that, I went to high school at Andernet International School in Addis Ababa. I was born and raised in Addis Ababa, lived there my whole life, and I came here as an international student. What else? I'm a double major in mechanical engineering and astrophysics here at Yale, and I'm happy to be here, happy to answer all your questions, and excited for all of you to learn more.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who have questions for Kidus, we will open the session for you guys to ask questions at the end of the class. ከዛ በፊት ግን let's just ask him some questions. ከዛ እሱን ካረግን በኋላ you'll get to ask your own questions. እሺ Kidus, starting off, what was your personal experience with the college application process? How would you describe it?
I would say this is only subjective to me because I stressed out way too much about the application process, but I thought it was pretty stressful because for the essays especially, I spent a lot of time writing drafts upon drafts upon drafts. I wrote many different essays over many different topics, and I knew I would, like, at the end of the day, you know you're submitting one essay, but I just wrote a lot of essays to get comfortable with the process. And through that process, I found that writing essays is a skill that literally gets better with practice. Like, you hear people say practice makes perfect, and that actually directly applies to writing. So the more you write, the better your writing is going to be. Excuse me. Other than that, I would say the number one key to the application process, and this is advice that all of you are going to get a lot, and you're all going to come to hate it because I got sick of it too after a point. But the key to the application process is to just be yourself. And what I mean by that is just showcase every aspect of your personality as best as you can. The application is designed for you to show all your interests and all your hobbies and everything about you. Don't just make it about your accomplishments, no matter how impressive they may be. At the end of the day, the admissions officers want to admit a person and not somebody with a really long resume. So I would say the key is to be yourself and use every single essay, every single activity entry box to showcase something different about yourself.
Okay, perfect. I hope you guys are taking notes because these are very important advices and not from a first-hand experience ስለሆነ take notes ብዬ እመክራችኋለሁ እኔ ደግሞ. Okay, our next question is, what did you do for extracurricular activities for your college application? ወይ ደግሞ በአጠቃላይ what did you do for extracurricular activities?
Okay, yeah. So in high school, I was president of the robotics club. I was also secretary general, which basically means president of the MUN club. The other major thing that I did was I was co-founder and president of the student council at Andernet. And these three things are pretty much the main things that I did. When it comes to extracurriculars, the one very important piece of advice I'll give you is depth matters more than breadth. The Common App gives you 10 slots to list 10 different activities. But you would be much more benefited if you have 2 to 3 activities that you go really deep in and make a huge impact in, as opposed to actually filling out all 10 of those slots with like different clubs or different activities that you did. A good example of that is in my involvement in robotics. I went pretty deep in robotics while I was at Andernet. Robotics and MUN, I gave a lot of my time and a lot of my energy to, and I accomplished more in those 2 clubs than I would have if I had like 9, 10 other activities that I was just doing just because. Another thing about the activity section that I want to highlight is it's not limited to just school clubs and organizations. You can do things on your own, hobbies that you're genuinely interested in, and you can definitely list those. If you have a part-time job, you can list it. If you for some reason, or if your living situation is in a way that you have to look after your siblings a lot of nights of the week, you can list that. The activity section of the Common App is there not only for you to show your achievements, but to just showcase all aspects of your circumstances that may have prevented you from, say, achieving a lot in one activity. One of the activities I listed that I enjoyed a lot more than, say, my involvement in robotics at MUN was the hobbies that I did on my own. Like I said, I'm an engineering major, and that started from high school when I did my own engineering projects at home. I used to build and test solid rocket motors, and that was a huge part of my application because of how much I enjoyed doing that. One more thing about the activity section is the order that you list your activities matters, because admissions officers are not going to look at the entire list. Your application, once it gets into the admissions office, literally has 10 minutes in the like top Ivy League schools, for example. Out of that 10 minutes, you get maybe 4 minutes for your essay, and I'll actually talk a lot about the essay soon. But your activities list is not going to get a lot of attention. The order you list matters. Admissions officers are going to look at the first two, maybe the first three if you're lucky. So you want to be mindful about what order you're listing your activities in.
Perfect. Okay. Third question is, what were your academic stats like in high school, basically?
Okay, so my stats, I had a 1560 on the SAT. My high school GPA was a 3.92 when I finished. Um, what else is there? And I took the Duolingo English test. I got a 150, or was it 155? I got a 150 on that one. One thing I want to note about GPA is that it's really good if you have an increasing trend throughout your years in high school. What I mean by that is, for example, in my case, my ninth grade GPA and 10th grade GPA were relatively low compared to my 11th and 12th grade. Just it's important that you show that increasing trend, especially if for whatever reason your ninth grade GPA is not great. Colleges do not care about ninth grade. It's you just started high school. They take that into account. Stanford, for example, is a good example. They literally don't even look at your ninth grade GPA. They delete it from your application before anyone ever sees it. Other colleges adopt a same belief that ninth grade doesn't really matter. So if your ninth grade's GPA is not that good, don't feel bad about it. Just increase from that point out. My ninth grade GPA, if I remember right, was around a 3.7. But then in 11th and 12th grade, I was getting 3.98, 4.0s, and then that averaged the whole thing out to a 3.92. So colleges will look at each year's GPA and not just the final average as well.
Okay, nice. So yeah, ብዙዎቻችን ደግሞ like ከአስረኛ ክፍል በኋላ ምናምን due to the application process እንዘናጋና እንደውም our scores seem to show a decreasing trend. ስለዚህ don't get distracted. Try to keep your grades up. And yeah, that's the advice we got from Kidus. Next question. What were the application requirements for Yale University at the time?
So other than the base Common App, which I'm sure all of you know has like the activities list, you've got the grade section, you've got the Common App essay. Yale specifically had 8 additional essays. 8 is a lot. It's one of the highest out there. Yale and Stanford actually have the most supplemental essays, but it's also not like 8 long essays. 4 of these 8 essays are called short answer responses, and I actually really enjoyed these. They prompt a lot of creativity, and they limit you to a 30-word limit, or about 200 characters. So you're limited to writing maybe 2 sentences for these essays, and it's a really good opportunity to show let your creativity shine. The prompts, one of the prompts that usually never changes was what inspires you. Simple question, 2 to 3 sentences to respond, but you got to find a creative way to respond. Otherwise, your application is just going to be lost in the pile. But yeah, other than the 8 supplemental essays, Yale did not have any special requirements.
Okay. Next question. What was your experience with the visa interview?
The visa interview went pretty smoothly. Once you have an acceptance from any college, the main thing that you need to prove to the visa interview officer is that you can pay whatever they want you to pay. Sometimes you don't even need to prove that. They might not ask you. But the main thing you need to prove is that you can pay, and the second main thing you need to prove is that you intend to come back home, because if in any way you make it seem like you want to come here and stay, they will not give you a student visa because it's illegal.
Okay. Next one. Uh, I'm gonna put this one for the last, but how was your experience at Yale University?
My experience so far has been amazing. Fall semester was overwhelming, I'll admit. There's just so much to do, so much. You meet so many new people, you learn so many new things, and it's just a wave of information at the beginning. But then you sort of you get the hang of it, and uh, after a while, you get into a routine. And spring semester for me was really great in a lot of ways, and overall, I'd summarize my experience as just fantastic.
Great. Okay. How was your social life on campus, and what was the Habesha community like?
Social life is great. This is one thing I actually make a point to try to maintain, because you can't just be lost in work all the time. It's not good for you and it's not healthy. Social life is great if you want it. There's always events happening. There's always social gatherings, and if you want to participate, there are always parties happening Friday, Saturday night. The Habesha community is great. So Yale has like these 4 cultural centers dedicated to minority groups. One of the centers is called the Afro American Cultural Center, and in this center, this is pretty much where we have most of the Habesha events. We celebrated Amat Bal there in September last fall, and that was a great experience. So I'd say the Habesha community is it's very tight knit. It's very good. It's very involved on campus, and if you ever need anybody to talk to, you're not going to be alone.
Okay, nice. Uh, Next question. How did you balance school life and work?
That's a very good question. Um, so it's hard at first, because college is a lot more stressful than a lot of people might be led to believe at the beginning. So I guess what my typical week looks like is, so during the weekdays, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. up to midnight, maybe 1 a.m. I'm doing work for something. 9 a.m. up to 5, I've got like my classes, and then I get dinner, and then I spend the night working on P sets, working on papers, readings. That's pretty much what my week looks like. It sounds horrible, I know, but then during the weekend you have to learn how to take time off of school. Like, even if you don't want to go out to parties at night, you have to learn how to like take time to yourself, to relax, join clubs and extracurricular activities that they mostly meet on weekends. One of my favorite clubs meets on weekends, and that's what I do during the weekends. It's very important to learn how to do both. The only time that I would say it might not be possible is like during midterms and finals week, where everything just gets crazy.
Okay. Uh, Next one. What opportunities were there at Yale?
Oh, there are tons of job opportunities. Even if you're an international student, you're legally allowed to work on campus. Um, my current job, is very, very relaxed. Basically, one of my responsibilities is to like fix and maintain printers across campus. We got printers everywhere, and they might break down for whatever reason. My main job is to like fix and maintain, make sure they're working fine. It's a very relaxed job, a lot of downtime, a lot of freedom with hours. And if you want something a little more involved, you can get a job as a research assistant with a professor. That's what I'm doing this summer. That's not only good for like income if you need it. It's good for professional development. It's good for your resume, and you just learn a lot more. All you have to do is email a professor who's like research you're interested in, send them your resume, and chances are they'll probably take you. Like I have not heard of a single student turned down by a professor, unless that professor is like particularly like really busy and they don't have time to mentor students right now. But that's probably the number one job I would suggest you go after.
Okay, that's really nice. Uh, okay, so do you have any tips on university life overall?
Um, let's see. I guess I would say know your limits is the number one tip I'd give, and that doesn't and I mean that in every aspect of the way. Know how many classes you can take before you have a burnout because of stress. Know your limits and how many clubs you can participate in before you're just overextended. Know your limits in how many nights in a row you can go out to parties before you're just completely wrecked. Just know you need to know yourself and know what you're capable of. And sometimes if you don't, that's also fine. Just err on the side of caution, or maybe if you want to test how far you can go with like these things, with how many classes you can take, that's also okay, but know the risk you're accepting when you try that.
Okay, perfect. That's really good. Last question I have for you is, do you have any tips for college applicants?
Other than the tip I gave earlier about being yourself, I would say, especially for the essays, practice makes perfect. Something I realized after I came here is that essays matter more than a lot of people think. So after I came here, I emailed the admissions office, and there you're allowed to view your admissions file and what the admissions officer said about your application. And I asked to see it, and they showed me. And so my SAT score wasn't even on it. They don't care about SAT as much anymore. I think that's a lot. That has a lot to do with what COVID had an effect on everything. My GPA was there, but it was just like one line, no comments. Extracurriculars were important. They talked a little bit about that, but the main thing each of the admissions officers talked the most about was my essays and my interview. You might get an interview from Yale. It was an online interview. Your essays matter so much. Practice writing good essays. Practice um, practice writing about topics that mean a lot to you and not just generic random topics. Just make sure your essays are a complete portrait of who you are as a person.
Okay, that's very valuable. We thank you very much for everything that you told us.